Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My little bar rats, how are you? It is a wonderful Friday, the 7th of March, 2025. I'm back in the StreamYard studio today because I figured out for Rumble, which I really do like, I have to download OBS. Some of you know what that is. It's a streaming software. It's free to download, but then I can create a background on it and then I can get back into Rumble. I don't have time because I was actually out today teaching an LTC class. So I had 3 students today and all 3 of them passed. So that was really great. And unfortunately, I came home at like 3 and then having dinner and getting ready for the show. I didn't have time to actually download that software. So that's why the set looks, everything looks normal as opposed to yesterday where it's just really, really green. But I'm out of ordinary time, Brian. So you can be happy about that. It is a wonderful Friday. The week is over. Our first Friday in Lent, so I hope nobody had any meat today, boys. Although this audience, most of the guys and gals that I know that are Catholic in this audience don't eat meat on Fridays anyway, even outside of Lent. I know my family, we don't eat meat on Fridays any time of the year, unless we completely mess up, like one day we completely forget. But we always try to make sure we don't eat meat on Fridays. And that's it's just common pattern for all these other people who are like, oh, I can't eat meat today, it's terrible. It's like, well, welcome to the club. That's what you should be doing anyway, and figure it out. But I hope you're having a good Friday as well, my little bar rats here on X and Rumble and YouTube and Twitch. My one Twitch user, I don't know who you are, but I appreciate you showing up every week. You're or every day. You are a pride and a testament to Rick Cast and holding it down over there in Twitch land. So thank you for that. Even if you're a spam bot, I'm not saying you are, but if you were, I'd still appreciate you. So we got some stuff to talk about tonight. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, G Money, but I don't know what the homework is for tonight. I didn't remember assigning homework, so we'll see. Well, I've got 4 good stories for you, 2 hot takes, and then I will release you to the weekend. How much will I pay to do? Oh, sorry, Texas. Oh, the dog ate it. Got it. How much will I pay for? Are you asking me for? OBS is a free website. OBS is a free streaming software. It's been around for ages. It's a free download, so it's not a huge deal. So, but thank you, Crotchety. It's actually a free software. I actually used it when I launched the Daily Mag Dump 2 years ago. And then I was using an old computer and I couldn't update it. So that's why I actually switched to StreamYard because I was because the software just wouldn't update. But I know how to use OBS. OBS is fine. It's gonna be pretty good. It's gonna work out really well for me. So that's a good shape. It's gonna work out really, really, really well. I like it. I think it's gonna go well. And I think you guys are doing well because you're hanging out with me. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If this is your first time hanging out with me, helps the show grow. If you're on YouTube or on Rumble, costs nothing. Hit that subscribe button and we'll continue to grow. I'm actually starting to grow subscribers on Rumble. We're almost at 50 subscribers on Rumble, which may not sound like a lot, but when you contrast the subscriber base on Rumble versus YouTube, it's actually quite impressive. So thank you to everybody on Rumble who's subscribing and doing great stuff over there. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. I will shut my face about this, or not really shut my face. I'll continue to ramble, but about the stuff that we actually want to talk about. So let's get to our first story of the night. 2 hot takes for you. Here we go. As soon as I get this thing set up, even though I didn't think it was, but it isn't. Yes. Here we go. First story. From the Associated Press, Trump has signed an executive order to establish a government Bitcoin reserve. If you were watching News from the Pew last night with Steve Cunningham, we both said that this was a terrible idea because this is the backdoor way into cryptocurrency. People will say, Rick, Trump signed an executive order against central digital bank currency, so you're like a total loser. And I went, yes, I am a total loser, but you also have to understand that not having a central digital bank currency in name only is not a huge deal. It just has to be some kind of crypto form of currency. Just because it's not going to be called that That's all that executive order did. It said we're not going to have CBDC. We're not going to have an official cryptocurrency. But by the way, here's a government Bitcoin reserve, meaning the government can seize it at any time and then create a government currency with it. The fact that nobody sees this and the fact that everybody just blindly trusts Trump to quote unquote do the right thing is mind-bogglingly stupid. Because if you wouldn't trust Joe Biden doing it, why would you trust Donnie? I don't vote for Donnie because I think he's the greatest man ever, or I vote him to keep the Democrats out of office. That's what I do it for. I don't vote for Republicans because I think they're the better people. I vote for them because they're the lesser of two evils, and you never pick the lesser of two evils. Some of you will get that reference. Most of you won't. But the fact is, this is a terrible thing. Now, of course, your Bitcoin bros, and Texas has a ton of Bitcoin bros, will celebrate this and say, this is amazing. We are so back, guys. And this is just awesome. And look how great we are. And blah, blah, blah. Y'all dumb. You're all dumb. Yeah. Now Kratchy, you're correct. You have an official government backing. Now the government is in bed with Bitcoin. The big appeal with Bitcoin before was the government wasn't involved with it. It was a hedge against inflation because the government wasn't involved in it. Now the government is. Great job, you bunch of brain trusts. Stephanie, I'm not calling you evil. They're my family up in Rhode Island. Most of them vote Democrat. A lot of Democrats, I mean, there are the psychotic progressives who are Marxists and all these other things. There's a lot of lifelong Democrats in Rhode Island. They just pull the lever because their family has pulled the lever for the Democrats their entire life. Does that mean Democratic voters are evil? Some are. Not all of them. And Steph, you can't be evil because you watch this show. So that actually kind of like balances out. So the idea of setting up some kind of government backing of Bitcoin is the single dumbest idea out there. But because Trump did it, you're going to get guys like Jack Posobiec and, DC Drano and all of these people coming out and saying, Trump is just amazing. Look how great this is. It's really good for the American people. Shut up. You guys are single-handedly ushering in CBDC. And that's what this does. And anybody that tells you differently is not as intelligent as I am. And that's a problem because you should stop listening to them. Speaking of which, this is Rick Cast. I am the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell because very few people talk the way I do. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Maybe. I don't know. All I know is as soon as I'm done with this show, I'm done for the week and I'm off to the weekend as well. So we're just going to leave it all out on the line tonight. And I'm glad you guys are here with me enjoying the view or my complete and utter crash out. But then again, it could be worse. I could own a SIG today. You gun owners know SIG has absolutely lost the plot because they're freaking out about their SIG P320. And if you know anything about the SIG P320, it has this problem that when you drop it, it kind of goes off. Most modern guns, if you drop them, there are mechanisms and things in place to make sure the gun doesn't go off. The P320 has this weird problem that if you drop it and it hits the floor, it goes off. And so SIG is having a massive crash out online right now where they're sending out like, it ends today and the 320 doesn't shoot automatically. And anybody that says that's evil and blah, 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 saying, all right, bro, maybe you could just fix the problem instead of attacking everybody. Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here with my Palmetto State Armory guns and my Rugers, and I don't have a problem. I don't have the problem that SIG seems to be having. Maybe it's when you get that government contract money, you just completely lose the plot. That's another reason why I like PSA is because PSA is committed to not doing government contracts. At least right now, I don't think they are. Maybe they'll change in the future, and I won't use them either. But I'm using my cheap PSA and my cheap Ruger RXM, and they're just running. Yeah. Crouchy, have you seen this? Let me see if I can find this real quick. I know, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be doing this to you guys because you don't want to see me like lean in my big old fat face like this. That's why I sit back so you don't have to see all this. But yeah, PSA is absolutely, let's see, P320. They are just losing the plot right now. And look at this. It's so bad that they had this post today, and I'll bring it up. Let's see here. This is not a hot take. This is just kind of off topic. So the truth about the 320. The P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull, and that is a fact. And the entire gun community went, "You sure about that? You sure about that? You really want to die on this hill?" And I know that's not a great turn of it's not a great turn of phrase when we're talking about P320s, but you really want to open up this can of worms? The allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility. Now, listen, if you drop the gun, that's not great, but, you're a human being. Things happen, in combat, guns get dropped. And the last thing you want to do is, if you drop it, be like, well, I'm about to get shot in the butt because this thing's about to go off. But SIG is having an epic meltdown this Friday, talking about like the design problem, and the 320 has no design problems. It's undergone the most rigorous testing and evaluations of any firearm by military and law enforcement around the world, blah, blah, blah. Like somebody is massively triggered. Steph, we're talking about gun stuff right now. It won't be too long. This kind of just came out of nowhere, where SIG is just losing their mind right now because everybody keeps saying, hey, your P320s are a piece of junk. And they're like, it's not, it's a great gun. Blah, 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 blah. Which is funny because people have been dogging on Berettas for years, the Beretta 92, because they're like, oh, it's a piece of crap because I had one in the military and they were terrible, neglecting the fact that most Beretta 92s are hand-me-downs, they're reused, and they're often used as hammers and all kinds of other things by, the military people that have them. So it's crazy, right, Michael? It's crazy. Your 1911 doesn't seem to be going off by accident either. It's kind of weird. And the thing, and I don't hate SIG. SIG is a fine company. Gun companies are gun companies. They're based out of New Hampshire, whatever. I just don't like how their stuff is expensive. Their stuff is really expensive, like their magazines, and there's all kinds of other stuff. I personally love the Beretta 92. I think the Beretta 92 is a solid gun. If you don't use it as like a hammer to put your tent, like to hammer nails into your tent or anything like that. If you use it like a gun, imagine that it actually works. So this was just a quick aside. Gun guys will know, and gun gals will know that the P320 has had a reputation of going off when you drop it. And apparently SIG is just done with that today. And they're going to try and be like, well, you guys are dumb too. I don't like either of you guys. Yeah, the USCCA thing, that was a debacle. They had a guy called Langley Outdoors, and I'm not trashing Langley Outdoors. He's a fine channel, but he tried to go out and say like USCCA isn't dropping people. They're doing this, they're doing that. And there's another account called Heavy Duty Country. He's in the Central Texas area either. He's a big dude. He's a big, awesome dude. His channel's amazing. And he just roasted this dude, Langley Outdoors, and I'll end on this, because I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this. And Steph's like, too late, move on. But I'm getting there, Steph. Hold on. Just because a company is a gun company, they manufacture guns, or they have accessories for guns, or they're in the gun community, doesn't mean they're pro 2A. Now, I'm not saying SIG is not pro 2A, but Alien Hybrid Holsters, they have people that work there that are not exactly pro gun. What's the company? Springfield, even though I have a Springfield 2011, they have had anti-gun practices in the past. Even Ruger, the guy Ruger himself never liked AR-15s. Now, they've obviously moved past that. I just, as much as I think Lucas Boykins or whatever his name is from T-Rex Arms, I think he's kind of annoying. That's because I guess I'm low-key jealous that the kid he started a firearms company and shoots thousands of rounds a day, and I'm sitting here not doing that. So, I mean, it's probably, I'm admitting on air, I'm probably more low-key jealous of him than anything else. But he is pro 2A, and his companies are pro 2A. So it's good to support somebody like him. I know. Listen, I'm not going to hate on Colion Noir for taking money from USCCA. I'm not going to, because guys, if this show ever gets popular enough to where I get sponsors, there may be a sponsor that I take that you guys may not like. And I'm telling you right now, that I took that sponsorship for money. That's it. Right? If they're going to pay me, I'm not going to, if I ever did get that I would not take certain brands. And I think you guys know what what sector of pharmaceuticals I'm talking about. But if USCCA wanted to pay me, I would take it. Call me a shill, call me whatever. You got to pay bills somehow, even though Coleon doesn't really need the money because his channel is successful and he has sponsorships and all these other kinds of things. If you don't like that, I'm just being completely truthful with y'all. 100% truthful. So weird when Taurus is considered cheap, right? Hey, man, that's the way I feel about Ruger, right? People, Rugers are crap. I've never had any major problems with Rugers. Never had major problems with them. So, all right, I'm going to get off the gun stuff because I could talk about this all night and I don't want to waste anybody else's time. Thank you for hearing me out on that, guys. But if you want to laugh, look up Sig because Sig is having an absolute meltdown. So yeah, listen, my social media gal, Miss Mag, she's putting the feelers out and she'll, eventually bring me some ideas and we'll go from there. Listen, dude, I would sell you Scotland royal title from Scotland, man. No problem. I guarantee you it's an actual piece. You were actually legitimately a lawyer. That was a hysterical. The Scotland land one. That was absolutely just hey Mike, man, thank you so much for stopping by, buddy. You have a great weekend, dude. Thank you for at least hanging out with me for a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to sell you the title, the royal title from Scotland, crotchety, and I guarantee you it'll be on the up and up. Oh, man, that's funny. All right, guys. So thank you we had a little bit of fun there. Hey, Crazy Dog 81, how are you? How are you doing over there on Rumble? Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. How you doing? Sorry, I got to make sure I interact with my Rumble people. I want to make sure they know they're loved too. So let's move on to our second hot take after a little bit of a windy road into nowhere. I guess we're going to kind of do that tonight on this show. I don't know how late I'll stay. We might just talk about stuff all night. Not really. Maybe like an extra 20 minutes. Let's be real. I'm trying to tell you guys, there's nobody, and this may be a big claim, but I guarantee you there's not going to be anybody more honest with you about how this stuff goes on YouTube or social media than me, because I have nothing to hide from y'all. If I take a sponsorship, I'm going to tell you, these guys are going to pay me. And guess what? Paying me makes me able to pay bills, and that is a good thing. So if it happens, it happens. But I will be honest with you with each sponsor if they ever come and how this thing goes, because you guys are the reason that this show would even have sponsors. If you think about it, if I ever get them, it's because of you, not because of me. It's because you guys watch it. You guys like it. You guys retweet it. You guys put it on your social medias. You are the guys that make it work. I work for you. And I think a lot of YouTubers have it the other way around. They have this big head like, oh, I'm such an amazing personality. Nah, you work for these people. And so that's how I look at it. You're all my bosses. Just treat me, a little bit. Treat me with some respect, y'all. Second story, second hot take. So a lot of people, once again, you're conservative grifters, which are going to come out. And I know I'm calling them grifters after 30 seconds ago telling you I'll take anybody who gives me money. You got to be honest with the grift. But the guys who pretend that they're not in it for the grift, the Procevics, the DC Dranos, everybody that was at the White House, Mike Chernovich, all those guys, all these grifters, they're going to tell you, this is amazing. Well, great win for free speech. We're getting rid of DEI. We're punching back at the libs. This is actually quite dangerous. I hope Stephanie's sitting down. I hope Steph is sitting down. This is very dangerous. Now, I'm going to try and split the baby on this one. If that's it. Is it split the baby? I don't know. I'm going to try and split the issue here and try to give you both sides. One, government money should not be in schools. The reason why colleges are so expensive is because they have these ridiculous backings of the federal government, so they can charge whatever they want. What is this? Columbia University. Columbia. Should have thought of this beforehand. University. I'm trying to make a point, and I'm not doing it very well. Because most of these colleges have this thing called endowments, where they get money back from their former eds or whatever the case may be. Usually they have the endowments here. Oh, so in 2024, Columbia got $14 billion in endowments. There's no reason that any of these schools, let me see this. I'll give you my example too. I went to the most prestigious school in the state of Rhode Island. That would be, wait for it, the Rhode Island College, the best D3 school you'll ever see. Go Anchorman. They're like, dude, shut up and don't tell anybody you went here. Even Rhode Island College got $16 million in endowments. You're telling me, Rhode Island College, you're telling me Columbia University, that you cannot fund your own students? That you cannot fund any of this stuff? That you need money from the government? That you need loans from the government through Fannie and Freddie? You cannot give out grants? You cannot give out loans to your students to come there? It's ridiculous. College is a huge racket because they force 18 and 19-year-olds who have no idea. These are the people that, they want to vote and can change their gender and do all this stuff. But they make them sign these loans for these ridiculous colleges that have $14 billion in endowment. And then they have to pay this $100,000 loan back over the whole course of their life. It's ridiculous. So on the one hand, colleges should not be getting government money, period. End of story. End of story. I have to do the clapping, right? End of story. They should not be getting government funding at all. Every university, whether it's Columbia University at $14 billion or Rhode Island College at $16 million. Rhode Island College has $16 million in endowments. Okay, how many people do they have in Rhode? They have 7,000 students at Rhode Island College. They can't divide up that endowment. No, you got to pay the professors and all these other kinds. You know what? There's way too many people on those college campuses to begin with. Many of them don't need to be there. So if colleges actually had to run their universities with the budgets and the endowments, maybe they wouldn't be $50,000, $60,000 a year. Hold on. Columbia tuition. I'm on a roll tonight, folks. We're not even into the main stories yet. Wait for that here on Rickcast. Let's see here. If you wanted to go to Columbia University as an undergrad, shut up with your eggs, Easter eggs or whatever they are. So the 2024 cost of attendance to Columbia University, $71,000 in tuition. And then a new student fee of $600 because why not? Housing and food is $17,000. Books, personal expenses, and transportations is another $4,000. The total cost to go to Columbia for 1 year is $93,000. How many students do they have? 36,000 students. I'm sure y'all can start doing the math on these kinds of things. They don't need government funds. They don't. You know why? Because if they actually had to start doing it based off their own budgets, it wouldn't be $71,000 for tuition. They are wringing these students and they're completely setting them up for failure so they can get the prestigious Columbia University. You're paying for the diploma. And nowadays, college educations aren't even worth the piece of paper it's written on. And you're going to tell me you're going to spend $93,000 a year? Governments need to get out of colleges, period. So on the one hand, I would kind of say it's great that that $400 million in grants and contracts and all that stuff is being removed, because I would like to see it removed, period. I don't want to see it in colleges anywhere. Well, Rick, how are these? Well, if Rhode Island College is making $16 million And Columbia got $14 billion in 1 year, by the way. 1 year. In 2024, $14 billion. Then there's no reason for the government to fund it. Sorry, you guys need to learn something about balancing your own budgets before you exploit all those students and make them pay for your bloated salaries, paying for people like Elizabeth Warren when she was teaching at Harvard. It's ridiculous. Exactly. That's it. These colleges, Crotchety Elder nails it. They get a blank check from the government. Oh, you can literally charge whatever you want because we'll back it. We'll make these students pay it. Think about it. They will make the students pay whatever the university charges. Because the government's like, yep, here you go. And they'll pay it. Don't worry about that. They'll pay it over their life. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so they're like, oh, if you take away the grants, how am I going to go to school? Make the college pay for you to go to school. If you get accepted into that college, they get to pay for it. Then again, you know what else you'll start to see less of? I know it doesn't happen anymore, but like affirmative action and DEI, because if you're paying for each individual student, you're not going to bring somebody that doesn't meet your academic standards because you're paying for them. Yeah, Texas A&M is no better. UT is no better. My wife got a master's from TCU. You should have seen the stuff that they were trying to charge her for. I got my master's from Penn State online. You know, even the online degree was like $36,000 for that, for an online degree. What the hell am I paying for? I'm not there. Technology fee. You guys put up YouTube, like literally you directed me to YouTube lectures. Anyway, this is my rant about college education. Apparently, I think it's a racket because it is. Yeah. Crotchety's absolutely killing it. Brian, you guys are all killing it in my YouTube chat. Thank you guys. Keep it up. You know, they rope you in. You got to pay $93,000 a year because you're like, I'm going to Columbia. I'll get a good job when I go to Columbia. And then you get out and they're like, well, good luck, buddy. But by the way, your loan is still due. So it is what it is. Now that I've ranted about money in government schools, let me tell you why I don't like this. I don't like it, ladies and gentlemen. You know why I don't like it? I don't like it because anti-Semitism allegations. I thought colleges were places where freedom of thought was supposed to be expressed. Now I don't like the freedom of thought that's being pushed here. Also, if you make these students pay, you can write whatever code of conduct you want. You could literally write, you could say you can't make fun of this group, or this group. And if you don't like it, you can't come to Columbia. Sorry. Or you can't come to UT, or you can't go to Baylor, or you can't go to Stanford. You have to live by our code of conduct because we are paying for you. All of these things, all of these problems at these universities go away. Now, of course, some of you will say, well, the Chinese put a lot of money into these endowments. The Saudis put a lot of money into these endowments. Foreign nationals put a lot of money into these endowments. It's not just U.S. companies. And you're right. But I'd rather that be the problem than having these kids have to go to the government, beg for a loan, and then have to pay it off the rest of their life for the privilege of some blue-haired fat whale of a professor who has two masters in basket weaving and one in gender studies of basket weaving, telling you how stupid you are and how colonialism sucks or how white people are terrible or whatever the case may be. The government funds these people so they can have their terrible opinions. Do you get that out? If you want to have the terrible opinions, if you want to have all these stupid things, if you want to kick people out for anti-Semitism allegations, at least you have the ability to do so because you're paying for each individual student. Yosemite? I like that. I don't like that clip from the newsroom because it's one of the most pseudo-intellectual things. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You've seen it online or whatever the case may be. But on the one hand, I like it because I don't want government money in there. On the other hand, I don't like what they're using to base this off of. I don't like it at all because we're propping up one group versus another group, or we're saying you can't, this group's untouchable, but this group is. And if the government's paying for it, which they shouldn't be, but right now, as the government is paying for it, then they should not be restricting certain types of speech. Now, if there's a university that's funded by, let's say, Israel, right? Let's say Israel funds Colombia. They just write a check and they give Colombia money. Nothing in the law against that. They're free to do it. Then they can enforce whatever code they want. Does that make sense? I only have a problem with it because it's the governments that's determining this. I don't like government money in schools. And at the same time, I don't like the government canceling said loans, not because government money shouldn't be in schools, but I don't like the fact that the government money is being canceled because a certain group is being targeted. Now, some of you will say, well, harassment. Hey, guys, we got SCOTUS precedents that says hate speech is free speech. Or anything, and speech is supposed to be protected. Everybody brags about your magnificent First Amendment and all these other kinds of things. Well, the First Amendment needs to apply everywhere, or can't apply anywhere. Now, of course, there are limits to it, like threatenings and things like that. And I'm sure somebody will jump in the comment section, which is fine. Please do. And tell me, well, Rick, they're threatening them and they're making their way of life difficult and all these other things. And I get it. I do. But the college needs to figure that out. The college needs to get that duck in a row. It's not the job of the government. The government should not be involved in private institutions. That's it. That's really it. And I don't know. Let me know. Am I wrong on this? Let me know in the comment sections down below on X and on Twitch and on Rumble and Facebook. Am I wrong? I don't think I am, but give me a reason why what I just said for the last 10 minutes isn't correct. Colombia makes $14 billion a year in endowments. Now, the word make might be a loaded term, but they receive $14 billion. How come they cannot fund their students? Right? And I'm not even telling them to give you grants. I'm telling them loan them the money. Do your own loan system within that if you want. You can either loan them the money or give it out in grants or do whatever the case may be. Let's see if you really care about education or if you guys are just looking for nice, cushy jobs. Let's be real. Everybody wants to be a college professor because it's a great life. You write 2 or 3 papers, you write a paper every couple of years. You teach 5 to 7 classes. You get tenure, and then your life is golden. So it's crazy how this goes. And so once again, I will wrap this up with a pretty little bow, splitting down the middle, trying to be even on this. I'm happy that this government money is being removed. I'm not happy for the reason that it's being removed. Let me know if you agree in the comment section down below here on Rickcast. I'm the aforementioned Rick. It's already 40 minutes into the show, and we're not even at our 4 main topics yet. So you guys are getting a lot from me tonight. I'm giving you the whole song and dance. Maybe that's why nobody's watching, because they don't want to see me dance. Either way, I don't know. Let's get to our first story of the night, ladies and gentlemen. Our first official story of the night. What we were just talking about were hot takes and kind of going all over the place. First story. Trump threatens Russia with new sanctions for quote unquote pounding Ukraine. They're giving the Ukraine a good pounding. I don't like it. Pounding is bad. I don't like the pounding. It's bad. It's bad. So President Donald Trump has said he is considering sanctions on Russia for following a wave of attacks on the Ukraine. The president said in a Friday post on Truth Social that based on the fact that the Russians are absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I'm strongly considering large-scale bank sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. Because you got to imagine him yelling as he's typing this. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you. Thank you. And people are like, oh, why is he now sanctioned? Because he's trying to get these two to the peace table. He's trying to get them to the negotiating table to end this. Because this is how it's going to work if Trump can't get this figured out. Europe is on the war path. Macron is talking to all the other countries about, I'll protect you guys with my nukes. And the UK is talking about putting some of their 75,000 troops in the Ukraine. And all these, Spain is talking about we stand with the Ukraine, even though they didn't do anything with the Muslim invasion. And so they're all on a war footing. They're all talking about rearming, which they won't do simply because that would mean they'd have to cut their social programs. And none of these countries are about cutting their social programs. That's what they brag about. Oh, we give our seniors vacation and everybody. They do it because the U.S. has provided them a dome of protection. They've been their police officer. And now the U.S. is like, we're not doing this. Well, we'll rearm ourselves. Let them try for a year, and then they'll go back to the U.S. and be like, by the way, can you help us? You know, I made the comment about Giorgio Merloni. I was like, oh, she's telling them she's not going to bring her soldiers into Italy. And then yesterday she's like, but if you want to extend, military protection to Ukraine under NATO without making them NATO, I'm cool with that too. It's like, son of a monkey. But anyway, you can listen to Donnie himself.
Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine.
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now.
Sides, the fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get a ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
Because the fact is, if Trump can't get this peace deal done, there will be total war in Europe. And I don't think people understand this. The people are really worried that the Europeans, and crotchety, you are my MVP tonight. And so is Brian, and so is Steph, and so is Mendez, and so is G Money. You're all my little MVPs. But yes, the EU wants more money. They want this slush fund. They want all these people to not pay NATO, but to pay themselves to create this European Union army or whatever the case may be. And they had a really cringe post. I'm not going to put it up here, but it's a power play. That's what the Ukraine war has always been. It's always been a power play. 100%. And so what would happen if Russia just took back control of all Ukraine? You're going to get World War III. It's that simple. Right now, and that's why Zelensky, he flip-flops back and forth. He goes, oh, well, I'll do the peace deal. And then, I don't want to he goes to Europe and he's like, I'm not going to do the peace deal. And then 5 minutes later, he realizes how, he's in not a good position. He's like, oh, I'll take the peace deal again. And then somebody calls him up and says, you're not going to. Europe is egging him on not to do the peace deal because they want, and we may go into Alex Jones territory here, so buckle up. We're about to go down the roller coaster. This is just a floating theory. A total war in Europe is a great reset for Europe. Look at World War I, look at World War II. Look at the amount of changes that happened in those countries as a result of war. They're trying to institute another version of their great reset, or whatever you want to call it, by initiating this third conflict. And it's not a great idea. It's not something that you want to be doing. And so that's my opinion, what they want to do. And I think that's why, there's been a series of attacks that the Russians have done on the Ukrainians. They're not going all in. They're just kind of, I think, and I don't know this, and I'm not trying to be a Putin apologist. I think Putin realizes that a war against Europe is not all of Europe is not a great idea because it's an expenditure of money, resources, and energy that he doesn't want to do. Also, think about this. The Europeans right now are still buying their oil from Russia. The Europeans are still buying their oil from Russia while they say how bad Russia is. If there is a total war, they will cut off the Russians' main source of income, which is buying gas from them. The Europeans buying oil and energy from them. So that's a no-win for Putin. He got his land bridge. He's done. If he really wanted to do total war, he could have flattened Ukraine in about 30 minutes with his strategic bombers. He could have made it a parking lot and rolled into Kiev if he really wanted to do that. I don't think people understand this. I know I'm not a military expert, and if you're a military expert and you think I'm, not saying the correct thing, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to have your opinion added in as well. But if Trump can't get this to the table and the Europeans continue to do what they want to do, you're getting a total, absolute World War I scenario in Europe once again. And that's not good for business for anybody. And so people, Steph, I personally think that Trump wants to get to the negotiating table. I think, and the only people that have prevented this is Zelensky in Europe. When Zelensky had his blow up in the Oval Office, there was a signing. They had the room, the East Wing or whatever, the Great Hall or whatever it was, set up for a signing ceremony. It was ready to go. And Zelensky blew it up. And so it's one of these things about having a total war. They want this because remember, the people that want the war are not going to be fighting in said war. The UK Prime Minister, the President of the EU, the Prime Minister of Spain, even Marloni, none of these people or their kids will be fighting. It will be, maybe they can use all the Muslims they imported to go fight the Russians. That would be fantastic, but I don't think that's going to happen. And it's a bad look, and Trump is trying to just get these guys to the negotiating table, get something signed, and move on. I firmly do believe that. There's a lot of stuff I don't trust about it, but the rich will prosper from war and the poor will die in it. And it's funny that the only person that sees that is the billionaire. The billionaire doesn't want the fighting to continue. And it's just not a good look. And it's the longer this plays out, the more likely we will have total war in Europe. And if we have total war in Europe, it's going to be a disaster for everybody. It's going to be, because war is a disaster. So it's not great. And I am hoping against hope that they can figure something out and get to the negotiating table and get this thing figured out. I really do hope so. Because nobody wants, only crazy people want war. This is Rick Cass. I'm the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and let's move on to our next story, which this one kind of fills me with glee. I missed. Here we go. Next story. This one real quick. I don't know how long we're going to stay on it, but Trump has been pressured to make Puerto Rico independent to save the Americans $617 billion. Now, it's funny because the Puerto Ricans kind of like their status because they're not a state, but they get funding and they get all this other kind of stuff and they get support from the U.S. while not being a U.S. state. They're a territory. And I don't know. I think I kind of support this. I love people in Puerto Rico. I love the people in Puerto Rico. I shoot the towels and they love it. But they don't really give us anything as a territory. What do they bring to the table? Now, you have a territory for strategic purposes. What is the strategic purpose of Puerto Rico? It's a legitimate question. Donald Trump is being lobbied to make Puerto Rico an independent nation and save American taxpayers $617 billion. That's a lot of money. At least 2 congressional offices are in possession of a 7-page draft executive order on how the U.S. can help the island territory transition to independence. One individual familiar with the document's origin said that at least 2 members of Congress have copied the draft, which the Daily Mail has obtained. A source familiar with the document's existence disclosed that it's also the possession of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and all these other people, blah, blah, blah. Staffers for Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee and staffers for Representative Tom Kern from New Jersey have already held or scheduled meetings about the draft's executive order. The committee has jurisdiction over the issues relating to Puerto Rico and other U.S. territories. The order appears to have been drawn up by congressional office and leaders of Puerto Rico succession efforts and not the White House. Listen, if they want to go, there's too much of that stuff on the Daily Mail, so I just have to do it this way. If they want to leave, I don't think we should stop him from leaving. I honestly don't. But it is clear the effort to apply pressure on the White House to transition out. It's clear the effort to apply pressure on the White House to transition Puerto Rico out of its current status as a U.S. That's not a really well written sentence. Trump has not indicated he wants to rid the U.S. of the territory. There's the famous picture of him tossing towels, which was awesome. President Trump, White House declined to comment. I don't know. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comment section down below. It's really not is the naval equipment, I don't know. Somebody could tell me, hey, that's why we use it, because of the naval base or whatever the case may be. You can have a naval base in a country and not have it a territory. We have bases all over Europe. We have bases in every country essentially around the world. So you could have a naval base there. And Puerto Rico, you could probably draw up an agreement and spend like $200 billion there and do all your stuff and you save $400 billion, right? So it's one of those things that I don't know what the use of Puerto Rico is strategically from a U.S. standpoint. I haven't really looked into it. But the fact of the matter is, it's not something that we need to have. Like I said, it's a beautiful island. The people there are great. I had a good buddy of mine I worked with at the gun range. He was from Puerto Rico. Awesome dude. But I think it kind of needs to get off the pot. Either it needs to be a state or it needs to be independent. That's really what it is. Maybe Kamala can be the president of Puerto Rico, right? Maybe she can go over there. I'm sure they would love to vote for her. But this is just something that kind of came up. I think it's interesting because it's one of these things that we're paying all this money to Puerto Rico. Their grid's not really that great. I don't think they would do well as an independent territory. They would become essentially a third world country. And that's not me being mean. It's just they don't have the infrastructure now with the $600 billion flowing in there. One of the reasons that the hurricanes are devastating to it is because it takes so long to get everything to that island. That's why their grid is so bad. That's why all their things are so expensive. It would probably go up and so forth. And I get it. You guys are making really good points about Puerto Rico, that it's a strategic location for shipping and aviation. Like I said, though, you can have a base there. We have bases in Japan. We have bases in Taiwan and Australia and all these other places that we don't have to have them as countries. And so it's an interesting play that maybe this is a way to say, hey, Puerto Rico, we're going to pull that $617 billion. We need you to make a decision. You become a state, which I don't want them to be, right? We can make them a state. We can bring them in Alberta and Greenland and all these other. We'll just have 55 in Gaza. We'll have 60 states by the time Trump leaves office. We're going to have like a brand new flag. It's going to be a Trump flag with his face on it. No more stars. Just be red, white, and blue with his face. They'll take the stars off because they can't fit them all on the flag. But either become a state or go independent. This halfway stuff, we're done. We're done with it. We're not going to give you this money and then you guys spit in our face for whatever reason when you don't like us. You can't do both. And a lot of countries are doing that to these United States. Take a lot of our money and then they say we're awful, terrible people. So, okay, if we're awful, terrible people, we're not going to give you the $600 billion. It's that simple. You can hang out on your own. We'll make an agreement. We'll keep our base there and we'll pay you like $200 billion for the base for strategic stuff. But outside of that, you guys can figure the country out. I mean, for goodness sakes, we have a base in Cuba. In Cuba. I know it was there before the fall, but we still have it. So there's no need for it to be a territory. We can do all kinds of other stuff. Oh, I think, Brian, we can do the Space Force. Pew pew. We can do that in Puerto Rico. All right, this is Rick Cast. I'm the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. I'm working overtime for you guys on a Friday. Can't believe I'm doing that for you. I do it because I love every single one of you. And to be completely honest, I appreciate every single one of you taking the time to hang out with me, right? You have a lot of options and you're hanging out with me, and I greatly appreciate it. It is our next story. I am glad that this has caught steam. Because before everybody, who was one of the first people to tell you it was a terrible idea to pardon Derek Chauvin? This guy. Everybody else was quiet. Everybody else was like, oh, well, Ben Shapiro, this, that, and the other thing. Jason Whitlock was the first out of the gate saying this was a stupid idea. I got to give him credit. I was one of the few after him to say, dumb idea, don't do it. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And then that's gained momentum. And it's coming out that the Daily Wire did this because they are desperate to reacquire subscribers. They are losing subscribers hand over foot because people are realizing that the Daily Wire is a crap organization, that all they've done is sap money from millennials promising to change the culture. And all they've done is sell overpriced chocolate and razor and shaving blades. The only thing that's good out of the Daily Wire, and y'all know I'm not a huge fan of Matt Walsh. I think he's fine. I don't think he gets, he's a much bigger personality than me. I don't have a terrible problem with him. I don't think he's as great, whatever. But he has done the only thing of worthwhile out of the Daily Wire has been his documentaries. Everything else has been a nothing burger. The movies they try to make, like Jeremy Boring, he's a failed movie producer. That's why he started the Daily Wire, so he could do the conservative alternative. And every movie they've made has been complete and utter garbage, unless it's Matt Walsh's documentaries. I have a feeling within the next year, and you're going to hear this first here on Rickcast, so this is why you subscribe to this channel, Matt Walsh will leave the Daily Wire within a year and start his own documentary, because that's where his own documentary film company, because that's where his heart lies, and that's what he's good at. He is really good at the documentaries and putting those together. Eventually he won't need the Daily Wire backing. And I think he would do really well to leave the Daily Wire and to create his own production company and do his documentaries. He can do those for the rest of his life and be actually more impactful than what he does at the Daily Wire. Now, I get it. He's still there because they pay him well. And I began the show telling you I would be happy to take sponsorships to get paid. So I understand why he's still there, but I think eventually he's going to see that the Daily Wire is a sinking ship and he's going to bail out. What's Michael Knowles going to do? Michael Knowles can start a podcast, write books, and be happy the rest of his life because that's his lane. He'd be really good at writing books, having like that upscale Catholic aesthetic that he's very good at. And then he can just do his show and he could probably be bigger. Honestly, I know this might not be a popular statement to my Catholic brothers and sisters, but I think he would actually be bigger than Matt Fradd if he went off on his own. Because I think he'd be much better in that role than what Matt Fradd is doing. Am I a huge fan of Matt Fradd? Not really. Doesn't mean I don't like what he's doing, but he is who he is. But I think the Daily Wire will be a shell of itself within a year. And I think this is going to speed that up because they went all in on this idea of pardoning Derek Chauvin. And saying like, we want Derek Chauvin pardoned until everybody went, why on God's green earth would you pardon him at the federal level? He still has a state sentence. Candace Owens actually did the documentary, Burning Minnesota, or whatever the case may be, where she came out and she said, pardoning Derek Chauvin at the federal level is a stupid idea because you know what would happen to him? I said this the other day because I'm just repeating what she said. They would take him out of the federal jail. He's here in Texas at a minimum security jail, and he's under federal protection. They had to move him out of Minnesota, and they moved him to another place, and then they eventually moved him to Texas. You get rid of that federal sentence, he goes right back to Minnesota, and he's under the control of Tampon Tim and all those guys. It would essentially be a death sentence to do that. And it would be a loss for, I already talked about this. There's reasons. You're going to hear this from this conservative influencer, Rob Smith, who is the definition of a grifter, by the way. He's just repeating stuff you've heard me say. It would cause racial division. It would give the Democrats something to run on, and it would be a loss for Trump that we get bogged down in. But if you want to hear those points again from somebody who's apparently a better conservative than I am, take a listen.
For the Trump administration, for this country, for race relations, for anybody else, it is absolutely destructive. It makes no sense. And so for me, when I first saw this, generally conversations that happen come from the ground up. Usually there's some sort of murmuring under, and then it kind of like bubbles up, and then it becomes a national conversation. This seems to be a very top-down conversation.
And Rob waited until he saw which way the wind was blowing, and now he's come out with his opinion, unlike people like me who don't care which way the wind is blowing. And I told you last week this was a stupid idea.
that comes from somebody with an enormous amount of influence. This is nothing that anybody was talking about or thinking about. So it really makes me question, why is this conversation happening right now? It makes me question.
It's happening because the Daily Wire has lost its supposed conservative credentials and they're struggling to get their audience back.
Why did Ben Shapiro want to start this conversation right now? Who does this benefit? Doesn't benefit Trump, doesn't benefit America, doesn't benefit race relations. It doesn't benefit anything. And the last point I'll make on it is this. There are very few people that can actually really speak to in depth what was going on in that trial, how how George Floyd actually died, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably 5 people that have, spent the bulk of their day on a podcast set every single day, like Ben Shapiro, like maybe 2 or 3 other people that can really talk to you in depth about this.
That's false. I mean, Shapiro has a law degree, but his lens was it was colored or filtered or slanted. That's the word, slanted, because the tweets we showed you when the story came up, he was like, George Floyd killed Chauvin killed George Floyd, he deserves everything he gets. So Rob, because Rob's, he's a smart grifter, he's not going to throw Ben under the bus because there's always money.
So then they're positioning themselves to say, no, listen to me. I'm the one who really knows about this. So what? Trump's agenda is supposed to be derailed. Where we're at as a country right now is supposed to be derailed because these leftists and these Democrats are looking for a reason to have another race war. That is what they love. So why this conversation is happening right now, I have no idea.
You're not for it at all?
No.
Patrick, don't get me started on Patrick.
That
guy's pathetic. I can't stand him. I cannot stand him.
Happening right now, I have no idea.
You're not for it at all?
No, I am not.
Oh, well, it's interesting. The black man isn't for it. Like, Patrick Bet-David, why don't you be a bigger racist? I mean, that passes for conservative intellectualism. Oh, the black gay man doesn't think it's a good idea. How interesting. Like he doesn't have his own agency, this guy. Yeah. Anyway, so Trump was asked about the Derek Chauvin pardon today. This is what he had to say about it.
Considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No.
Nope, not going to do it. Not going to help little Ben Shapiro in his failing little outfit. Not going to help him at all. Why would I help him? And I think it's great. And that's really it on this story. Everybody else, yeah. Well, Patrick Bet-David started off in a pyramid scheme. That's how he made his money. He did it in a pyramid scheme, and then he rebranded himself some kind of financial genius. He's not. And he is, he's as big of a snake as any of them. So it's one of these things. Yes, that's right. Trump was like, I heard the Rick cast, and the Rick cast said, don't do it. And I said, Rick, love your show. Great idea. I wish. Dude, if Trump shouted me out once, I would be good. Just one time. Rick cast, great show. Everybody watch it. But whether he should be pardoned or not, Mark, is it's kind of like 2 questions. Should he be pardoned? Absolutely, because it was a sham trial. But the fact is, he's got 2 sentences. He's going to still have to suffer the state sentence. And whether we wanted to or not is irrelevant because it won't do anything. It'll actually make the situation worse by pardoning him. But of course, this is a desperation move to try and get some relevancy again for Shapiro to reestablish himself as one of the leading voices. And because right now, people, when he speaks outside of his little Daily Wire audience, everybody just trolls him. They just troll him. They're like, he's like, oh yeah, we should totally do this. And everybody's like, dude, shut up. You were anti-Trump. Now you're pro-Trump. You campaigned against him. Now you're like, oh, Trump should do it. And if I was Trump, I'd be like, Ben, I'm not listening to you because you're not important. You're an insignificant bug, Ben. Nobody likes you. And so this move, but this desperation move is really a story about the Daily Wire more than Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin's being used as a pawn once again. Instead of the left using him as a pawn, now the right is using him as a pawn. He's being used once again for clout. He's being used once again to push an agenda. And that agenda is the Daily Wire trying to get more subscribers back. because they were stupid. They let Beth Cooper go, which was absolutely mind-bogglingly. Like, when you have a show that's making millions and millions of views, you pay that person. It was a money deal. She just wanted more money, and they're like, no, we're not going to pay the person that has the biggest cultural impact and draws in an audience that we're all desperate for. Every conservative podcast wants female listeners. And I have my fair share, actually, if you look at my statistics. But the fact of the matter is, they're desperate. This is a desperation heave, and it was a bad move on their part. And they're going to suffer the consequences within the next year. I think Walsh will be gone. I think Knowles will be gone. And it is what it is. Who's Beth Cooper? She was a Gen Z conservative that was very big in that young female sector. She had a show called The Comment Section with Brett Cooper on the Daily Wire. And she did very, very well. And so she wanted a little bit more money. The Daily Wire said no. She left. Hundreds of people just left with her. And now the Daily Wire is suffering because of it. All right. So glad to see Trump has taken my advice. You know, he is a genius when he listens to people like me. This is Rick Cast. I'm the aforementioned Rick. Like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell if you like what I'm doing. And I'm giving you the overtime on a Friday. Last story of the day. Pretty sad story. And this one was the first. I got home from my LTC course at like 3:30. Sat down, had some dinner with the wife. She made me delicious shrimp and rice for Lent. It was amazingly delicious because my wife is amazing and she's a great cook. And then I sat down to do this. And this was the first story that popped up when I opened up X. And it's Gene Hackman, an update on Gene Hackman. And it's actually, let me go back. That's what I'm saying. Matt Walsh could go on his own. I understand why he's not right now because he's still getting paid very well, right? If the checks are coming in, I get why he's still there. Never been a big fan of some of his opinions. A lot of his opinions are kind of controversial to be controversial, and there's not a lot of stuff behind it. That's my opinion. I know a lot of Catholics love him, and I get it. I'm not trying to drag him. This is just little old Rick's opinion. Doesn't mean anything to you if I don't like him. But I do give him credit because his documentaries have been the only worthwhile thing to come out of the Daily Wire. And if he wanted to, he could easily start his own production company. He could still do his YouTube show, right? He could still do his YouTube show and podcast, make lots of money off of that. Because it's Brett Cooper and Candace Owens, whether you like them or not, have shown that you can leave the Daily Wire and actually do better. Candace Owens, like her or hate her, she gets over 500,000 to 1 million views on almost all of her videos. Brett Cooper does the exact same. And yes, you can tell that documentaries are his passion because he does them amazingly. Everybody who's watched them, they've actually had the only impact on the culture that the Daily Wire has put out there, not the chocolate bars or the razors or anything else. So I think he's going to get to a point where he might want to make a documentary and the Daily Wire might not pay for it. And he's going to go, I'm done. I'm just going to go start my own production company. I can find some backers and I'll just do that on my own. And I'll do my podcast and I'll do a couple documentaries because that's what he enjoys. And you should just go out and do if you're good at it, which he is. He's very good at it. Everybody who watches them, I've never seen either one of them, but from what I hear, they're very good. And he likes doing it. So if you're good at it and you like doing it, you should just leave and go do that, right? You should just go do that. But I also understand that the checks are still coming in. So he may not be there yet. He may get there eventually. And like I said, this time next year in 2026, he might not be there. I have a feeling that eventually he's going to get tired of the runaround that the Daily Wire is doing. And this whole thing with Chauvin is not helping them. Last story of the day. So this is a strange story, man. We were all talking about this when it came out. What happened? The causes of death were weird. The wife was mummified and he was just kind of in a different room and the door was open and one dog was dead, but the other two weren't dead. What happened there? Well, apparently the wife died first. And then a week later, Gene Hackman died. I'll let the press conference tell you better than I can.
This investigation started on February 26th with the discovery of Mr. Hackman and Miss Arakawa and their dog at their residence. I just want to do a short recap and then touch on some new information. As we know, both individuals tested negative for carbon monoxide. City Fire conducted tests and deemed scene safe for deputies to conduct their investigation. The preliminary pacemaker interrogation results were released last week, and I'll let Dr. Giral touch more specifically on those results. The gas company New Mexico, they also did an analysis of the residence, and they found one minor leak in a single burner on the kitchen stove, which was 0.33% of room air, which was pretty minute and insignificant. Since that time, Xena, the deceased dog, has been taken for necropsy at the Veterinary Diagnostic Services, and we'll be awaiting those results. Let's speak a little bit in reference to the timeline for Betsy Arakawa. We know from our investigation that on February 9th, 2025, she picked up Xena from Gruta Veterinary Hospital. There was a procedure that was done with the dog, which may explain why the dog was in a crate at the residence.
Hold on. So the dog was in a crate. At first, there was conflicting stories. He was in a closet. He was in a crate. He wasn't in a crate, but apparently he was. Interesting.
Let's move on to February 11th, 2025. Mrs. Arakawa had an email conversation with her massage therapist at about 11:21 a.m. Moving on into the afternoon, Ms. Arakawa was at the Sprouts Farmers Market between 3:30 and 4:15 p.m. Ms. Arakawa was seen on surveillance video at the CVS pharmacy in Santa Fe from 4:12 to 4:20 p.m. She then stopped at a local pet food store at about 4:54 p.m. Her car was seen on surveillance, and the remote control clicker that is assigned to her and her vehicle was used to enter the subdivision to gain access to the gated community at 5:15 p.m. Numerous emails were unopened on her computer on February 11th. There was no additional outgoing.
Yes, that's a strange thing. I don't know why they're calling her by her name, her maiden name.
Communication from her or known activity after February 11th, 2025. Cell phone information, the cell phone information and the cell phone data is pending. We're working with state police to get the information from those phones, but our investigation shows that all the last known communication and activity from Ms. Arakawa was on.
So let's get this out of here. Remove this, get this here. Yeah, this is a yeah, the law enforcement people are the guys that can't do anything else. Also, their job is to give you as little information as possible while giving you information. So the cause of her death was hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which if you're a doctor or a medical professional or somebody who loved the show House, you can help me out with that. But what does AI tell us that it is? Nope. It's a rare but serious respiratory illness caused by hantavirus, primarily spread through rodent droppings, urine, and saliva. That's gross. Symptoms have typically began 2 or 3 weeks after exposure and include fever, muscle aches, headaches, shortness of breath, and lethargy. The disease can progress rapidly to severe respiratory failure and a high mortality rate between 30 and 60%. So really, the cause of it is through aerosol rodent excrement. That is rough. Anyway, so actor Gene Hackman died of natural causes days after his wife Betsy succumbed to a rare respiratory virus. She died of the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, while Hackman died of heart disease. with advanced Alzheimer's disease contributing. That's why, he's 95 years old. She died. He probably didn't even know she was dead. That's the crazy thing. He probably didn't even know, because his brain was, as a 95-year-old person, your brain's not all there at 95. That happens. Said Dr. Heather Jarrell, chief medical investigator for New Mexico Office of Medical Investigations. The couple's partially mummified bodies were found in New Mexico. The 95-year-old Hackman may have lived for as long as a week after her death. Officials speculated that he may have been unaware. Yeah, he was in a very poor state of health. He had significant heart disease, and I think ultimately that's what resulted in his death. The press conference in New Mexican authorities held on Friday provided some answers to the mystery of what happened. Hackman and Arakawa, or Mrs. Hackman, were discovered last week after a maintenance worker, concerned no one had answered the door, contacted neighborhood security, who then went in. Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office said they did not suspect foul play, but they couldn't figure it out. At the press conference on Friday, the sheriff, Adam Mendoza, revealed the investigators had been able to piece together Arakawa's final days, or Mrs. Hackman's final days, and found out she had picked up her dog, who was later found dead nearby from a veterinary appointment. And then the last known activity that day, her death was linked to this pulmonary syndrome, a rare but fatal disease spread by infected rodent droppings. Exposure occurs when people are near mouse droppings in homes, sheds, or poorly ventilated areas. Hackman's pacemaker last showed activity on February 17th, 9 days before the maintenance and security workers showed up at the home and alerted the police. Officials said that it was reasonable to conclude that Hackman died around the 18th of February. Her body was found with an open prescription bottle scattered around the bathroom counter, while he was found in the home's primary entryway. One of the couple's 3 dogs was also found dead in a crate. The 2 other dogs survived. When they were found, the bodies were decomposing with some mummification, a consequence of the body type and climate in Santa Fe's especially dry air. Yeah, that is a sad state. And that's why a lot of people, eternal for Gene Hackman and his wife, Mrs. Hackman, eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. Amen. That is a rough. That's, when you don't have multi-generational homes, which we used to have until, the 50s, 60s, and people just kind of gave up on taking care of their parents. Your parents would be looked after by you. That was kind of the circle of life. They looked after you when you were younger, and the idea was you're supposed to look after them when they get older. I know I give out a lot of personal information on here, but you spend every day together with me. It kind of is. One of my wife's first things, she said, we're going to take in my mom. This was on one of our first and second days. She goes, we're going to take in my mom. And here I am sitting across from the most beautiful woman I've ever been around. And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, all right. But I would do that. I would absolutely take care of my in-laws if they needed, if they wanted to build out. Because that's how families survive. You take care of your family members. And we have this transient society. And I'm an example of that. My family, all of my family, lives in Rhode Island or on the East Coast. And so I'm not there. And of course, you talk to your family, hey, you guys going to move somewhere and you're going to leave Rhode Island. Maybe we can live near each other to keep up and check up on each other. And that's just, we need to get back to this. We need to get back to, if you're not going to live in the same house, at least live near each other so you can check up on each other. And we all think about that. We all think about these types of things because as our parents and as we get older, we're going to need somebody, maybe not to take care of us, but to at least look out for us, to look after us. And as Catholics, that's absolutely one of our duties. One of the 10 commandments is to honor your father and mother. One of the ways you do that is you take care of them when they cannot take care of themselves. Now, I'm not throwing this on the feet of the daughters of Gene Hackman or any of these other kinds of things. It's just an example. It's one of these things. You're like, why, yes, man. Yeah, we're literally, my wife could have said anything, and I was like, yes, honey. Yes, future Mrs. Barrett. Absolutely. Right? When you're hanging out with a 10 everything's agreeable. Out kicking the coverage is definitely one way to put it. But the fact is, as Catholics and people of faith, we have gone so far away from the idea of taking care of and honoring our parents. And white people, we be the worst. We throw them in the old folks' home and we, bye. Social Security or Medicaid will cover it. See ya. Going to the old folks' home, and you see the videos of that and how they get treated there. It's just not the right way for your parents to live out their last years. They should be around you. And if you have kids and grandkids, they should be around those. And if you don't have kids or grandkids, at least being around you. You shouldn't be ashamed. And of course, I'm going way off the plot with this because I'm just using this unfortunate and tragic death to kind of highlight that. Once again, not throwing shade at Gene Hackman's daughters. Maybe he was like, I don't need you guys. I'm fine. I'm here in this community. We're good. My wife's 30 years younger than I am. So, she's going to outlive me. So don't worry about it. Not realizing that she would succumb to this unfortunate disease. And it's really terrible. How these things happen. And yeah, the daughters, people in the chat room are bringing it up. Yeah, the daughters are probably feeling terrible about it right now, but maybe he told them that he was fine, right? Don't worry about me. You guys live, you have parents sometimes say, don't worry about me. Live your own life. I'm fine. I got my community. I got they check in on us. They do all these other things. But in the end, even if your parents say not to, you still should at least do what you can. And tragic stories like this remind us of it. That, the family structure, which these United States and capitalism has done all it can do to destroy the family unit, taking care of your, the family unit is not just you, your wife, and if you have kids, it's you, your wife, and your extended family. That's the unit. I mean, the family unit spreads out. And so, it's an absolutely tragic thing. We all thought it was something where he died and she maybe died right after him, but apparently she died first. And because he was almost 100, he didn't really realize. But yeah, no, it's not, somebody in our chat room and on YouTube is, he didn't know if he cut off the kids, but he become a recluse. And like I said, I've known people. I knew a guy a while back, his father got cancer and his father told him, don't worry about me. You have a wife, you have kids. I've lived my life. I've taken care of you guys. You go do your thing. Check in on me every once in a while. But, you go, don't worry about me. Parents will be parents all the way up till the end where they don't want their kids to have to worry about them. And so they will fight that. They will fight the fact that you want to take care of them because that's not the way the roles are supposed to work. So even, maybe he assured them multiple times, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Either way, it's an awful, and no matter what, the way the bodies were found and the fact one of the dogs was dead and the other two weren't, and he was in a weird place and she was in the bathroom, it was not going to be a satisfying, i.e. happy, happy death. Very few people, I know we talk, I'm not trying to get macabre on a Friday night, but very few people experience the grace of a holy death and a blessed eternity as we Catholics look at it. It's just one of those things. So we have to be ready for it. And one of the ways we could be is if we take the practice into our own lives of looking after our elders. So this is just another example of the tragedy that is life and how it goes. What a great way to end the show. On a huge downer. So anyway, I want to appreciate every single one of y'all. Look at me. I went an hour and 30 minutes on this Friday night for y'all because you guys, I'm here for you. I work for you, and I'm happy that you guys hung out with me. So this is Rickcast. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. If you like what I did, leave me a comment in the comment section down below on X or on Rumble or on YouTube or on Facebook. Let me know what you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show. I am going to take the next 2 days off. Not really, because I have other things to do. And I know you do too as well. I hope everybody has a good weekend. Y'all behave yourself now, right? I don't want any of y'all getting into trouble. I will see you guys on Monday next week. God bless. And until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.